It started innocently, or at least that's what I keep telling myself whenever the guilt begins to creep in. I had known Claire for years, ever since she and her husband moved into the house 2 doors down from mine. She was the kind of woman people couldn't help but notice, striking hazel eyes, a smile that lingered too long, and a way of carrying herself that made the air around her hum with quiet confidence. Her husband, Daniel, was charming enough, always polite, always busy. He traveled often for work, leaving Claire alone in their home with too much quiet and too many hours to fill. That's where I came in, first as a neighborly friend, then as something far more complicated. The first time it happened wasn't planned. She had invited me over for wine on a Thursday evening. We sat in her kitchen, the bottle half empty between us, the conversation growing warmer with every pour. She leaned closer when she laughed, and I swear I could feel the heat radiating off her skin. Her hand brushed mine once, then again, and she didn't move it away the second time. The moment stretched between us, a dangerous silence where her eyes locked on mine as though daring me to act. My heart pounded in my chest. I knew the right thing to do was to laugh it off, to change the subject, to leave before anything happened. But I didn't. Instead, I let my fingers intertwine with hers, a simple touch that carried the weight of every unsaid desire we'd been hiding. When she finally whispered, "He'll never know," I felt my whole body shiver. That was the beginning of something neither of us had ever admitted we wanted but both of us desperately needed. The first time I stepped inside her house without her husband there, I felt like I was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The air itself seemed different, quieter, more charged. Claire greeted me with that smile, the one that tugged at the corners of her lips as though she knew a secret and couldn't wait for me to find out. She poured 2 glasses of wine, just like before, and we settled onto her living room couch. For a while, we talked about nothing and everything, the neighbors, a new restaurant, how Daniel had flown out early that morning for yet another business trip. But underneath her words was a hum, an unspoken invitation I couldn't ignore. Her knee brushed mine. This time, she didn't move away, and neither did I. I looked at her, really looked, at the way her hazel eyes flickered with mischief and something darker, deeper. When I reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, she exhaled like she'd been waiting for me to do it. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She leaned closer, her lips brushing my ear as she murmured, "I've never been more sure of anything." The first kiss wasn't soft or hesitant. It was hungry, urgent, years of unspoken desire crashing into a single moment. Her lips tasted of red wine, sweet and dangerous, and when her fingers slid along my jaw, I knew we had stepped into something we could never undo. We pulled apart just long enough to breathe, our foreheads pressed together, our chests rising and falling in sync. The world outside her living room ceased to exist. There was only the warmth of her body against mine, the softness of her skin, the sound of her voice whispering my name like it was something sacred. Her hands found mine again, squeezing gently as if grounding me in the moment. "When he's gone," she whispered, "I want to be yours. Just yours." And I wanted her too, more than I'd ever admitted, more than I thought I was allowed to. That night, we didn't rush. We let the tension build, every kiss, every touch lingering longer than it should have. The clock ticked, but neither of us cared. Because when the door closes behind him, it's as though the world belongs only to us. The days after that kiss were restless ones. I couldn't concentrate at work, couldn't sleep without replaying the way her lips had tasted, the way her fingers had gripped mine as though she'd never let go. Every text from her sent a jolt through me, every casual smile across the fence in daylight holding layers of meaning no one else could see. She invited me over again the next week. Daniel was gone, of course, he always was, and this time, she didn't bother with the pretense of wine or small talk. When I walked through her door, she simply closed it behind me and leaned against it, her eyes locked on mine. The silence was thick, electric. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of a clock somewhere down the hall, but mostly I heard my own heartbeat racing in my ears. I stepped closer, and her lips curved into that knowing smile. "You've been thinking about it too, haven't you?" she whispered. I didn't answer with words. Instead, I cupped her face and kissed her, softer this time, deeper, savoring the taste of her, the way her body melted into mine. Her hand slid down my sides, pulling me closer until there was no space left between us. We stumbled toward the couch, laughter spilling between our kisses, our hands greedy and clumsy with the need to touch. Her skin was warm beneath my fingertips, her breath quickening as I traced the curve of her neck, the line of her collarbone. She pulled back just long enough to look at me, her eyes glassy with desire but also something tender, something that scared me even more than the heat between us. "Do you know how long I've wanted this?" she asked, her voice breaking slightly. I swallowed hard. "Tell me." "Since the first summer we met. I used to watch you in your garden, the way the sun caught your hair. I used to imagine what it would feel like to hold you." Her confession unraveled something inside me. All the times I thought it was just me, all the guilt I'd carried alone, it wasn't one-sided. She had been craving me too, silently, patiently, waiting for a moment like this. Our lips met again, hungrier, fiercer, as though years of restraint had finally snapped. Every kiss, every touch, every sigh became a secret only we could hold. And when her head rested against my shoulder afterward, I knew there was no turning back. Her husband would never know. But for us, that was the point. After that night, our world changed. Every time Daniel packed his suitcase and rolled it out the front door, I felt a pulse of anticipation. It wasn't just about desire anymore, it was the thrill of secrecy, the stolen hours that belonged only to us. Claire would text me when the coast was clear, simple words like "he's gone" or "come over," but they carried the weight of everything we had become. I'd slip out of my own house, heart pounding, every step toward hers a mix of excitement and fear. Sometimes we barely made it past the doorway before our lips collided. She'd push me against the wall, her breath hot against my skin, her hands exploring with a desperation that mirrored my own. The world outside didn't exist in those moments. It was only us, two women tangled in something we both knew was dangerous yet impossible to stop. But it wasn't always fire and urgency. Some days we'd simply curl up together on her bed, whispering secrets into the quiet. She told me about her childhood dreams, about how lonely she felt in her marriage, about how no one had ever really seen her the way I did. And I confessed my own hidden desires, the way I'd felt pulled to her from the start, even when I tried to deny it. Those softer moments scared me more than the kisses, more than the touches that left me trembling. Because desire can be brushed off as temporary, but connection, that was harder to ignore. One afternoon, after hours of lying tangled in her sheets, she turned to me and said, "Sometimes I think this is the only time I'm truly alive." Her words sank deep, pressing against the part of me that had started to wonder if this was more than just an affair. Was it love? Was it possible to fall for someone you were never supposed to touch? The guilt came in waves, but every time I thought about walking away, her hand would slip into mine, her lips would brush against my neck, and I'd remember why I stayed. Her husband had no idea. To him, Claire was the devoted wife, the perfect partner waiting patiently for his return. But to me, she was a wildfire, untamed, consuming, and impossible to resist. And each time we were together, I knew we were playing with fire. But I also knew I'd let myself burn for her. The more time we stole together, the harder it became to pretend it was only about desire. At first, it was the hunger, the way we tore at each other's clothes, kissed like we were starving, whispered each other's names in the dark. But now, even in the quiet moments, my chest ached when I thought about her. One evening, Claire cooked dinner for us. Nothing elaborate, just pasta, garlic bread, and a bottle of wine, but the intimacy of it felt heavier than anything we had done on her couch or in her bed. She moved around the kitchen barefoot, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, and when she caught me watching her, she smiled that soft, dangerous smile that made my knees weak. "You're staring," she teased. "How could I not?" I replied, my voice low, honest. She placed 2 bowls on the table and slid into the chair across from me. For a moment, it felt almost normal, like we were just 2 people sharing a meal, not 2 women sneaking behind her husband's back. That illusion was intoxicating and terrifying. After dinner, she reached for my hand, her thumb brushing circles over my skin. "Do you ever think about what it would be like if this wasn't a secret?" she asked quietly. The question made my breath catch. I had thought about it too many times. Waking up beside her without fear, holding her hand in public, loving her without shame. But those were fantasies, fragile dreams that reality could never sustain. "Yes," I admitted. "But that's not the world we live in." Her eyes softened, though a shadow passed through them. "I know. It's just, when I'm with you, I forget everything else. I forget who I'm supposed to be. I just feel free." I kissed her then, not out of hunger but out of tenderness, pouring into her all the words I couldn't say. She melted against me, her hands cupping my face, her lips moving with mine like we were already lost in each other. That night, we didn't rush. We moved slowly, exploring every inch of one another as though we had all the time in the world. Her breath was steady against my ear, her whispers a mix of longing and confession. And when she fell asleep in my arms afterward, her head resting on my chest, I realized this wasn't just an affair anymore. I was falling in love with her. And that terrified me more than anything, because love has a way of demanding truth. And truth was the one thing that could destroy us. Secrecy was part of the thrill, but it was also the weight pressing down on us. Every stolen glance in public, every brush of fingers when no one was looking, it was a dance on the edge of discovery. And sometimes, that edge cut a little too close. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel came home earlier than expected. I was in my backyard, trimming the roses, when I heard his car pull into the driveway. My heart lurched because not even an hour before, I had been in Claire's kitchen, her lips still warm against mine, her laughter still echoing in my head. I glanced up just in time to see him kiss her cheek as he carried his bag inside. Claire caught my eye across the yard, her expression calm, collected, like nothing had ever happened. But I knew better. Behind that smile was the same fire that had been burning in me all week. Later that evening, she texted me one word, close. My stomach flipped, fear mixing with desire. The risk made everything sharper, more intoxicating. Another time, we almost got caught in her living room. We'd been tangled together on the couch, her lips trailing down my neck, when headlights suddenly swept across the curtains. We froze, hearts racing, and she whispered, "It's just the neighbors," before dissolving into nervous laughter. But the thought lingered, what if it hadn't been? The danger should have been enough to stop us, to remind us of the lives we were risking. But instead, it pulled us in deeper. Each stolen moment felt more precious, more urgent, as though the possibility of losing it made it burn brighter. One night, after we nearly missed being seen at the cafe downtown, when she had reached across the table and brushed my hand without thinking, I pulled her aside, breathless with panic. "We're going to get caught, Claire." Her eyes darkened, but not with fear. With defiance. "Then let them catch us," she whispered, her hand pressing against my chest. "I'm tired of hiding what I feel for you." The words should have terrified me, but instead they set me on fire. Because in that moment, I realized something, this wasn't just her secret anymore. It was ours. And I would risk anything to keep it. Still, as I lay awake that night replaying her words, I couldn't ignore the truth. The more we risked, the more dangerous it became. And if the wrong person ever found out, our world could come crashing down in ways neither of us were ready for. But when it came to Claire, reason never stood a chance. By now, every touch, every kiss carried something heavier than desire. It was no longer just about stolen passion, it was about the way she looked at me when no one else was watching, the way her laughter softened when she was in my arms, the way she whispered my name like it was the only truth she knew. One night, after Daniel had left for yet another trip, Claire invited me over as usual. But this time felt different. The lights were dim, soft music played from her speakers, and candles flickered on the table. She wasn't wearing her usual jeans and t-shirt, instead, she'd chosen a silky robe that slipped off her shoulder, revealing just enough to make my heart ache. When I walked in, she didn't rush to kiss me. She simply stood there, studying me, her eyes filled with something raw and unguarded. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "if this is more than just an escape for us?" My throat tightened. I had wondered, every day, every sleepless night. But saying it out loud was dangerous. Still, I couldn't lie to her. "It's more," I admitted. "Much more." Her lips trembled into a smile, relief washing over her face. She closed the distance between us and kissed me, slow, deep, a kiss that tasted of confession. I felt her whole body sigh into mine, as if she had been holding back for far too long. We moved together with an intimacy that night that was different from all the others. There was no frantic urgency, no desperate rush. Instead, every kiss lingered, every caress spoke words we didn't dare say aloud. Her skin was warm beneath my hands, her whisper softer, almost reverent. When we finally lay together, tangled in her sheets, she pressed her forehead against mine and whispered, "I love you." The words froze me. They were everything I had wanted to hear and everything I was afraid of. I searched her eyes, half expecting her to take it back, to laugh, to say it was just the wine. But she didn't. Her gaze was steady, filled with truth. "I love you too," I breathed, the confession slipping out like it had been waiting all along. She smiled then, her tears glistening in the candlelight, and kissed me again with a tenderness that made my chest ache. That night, something shifted between us. We were no longer just two women stealing kisses behind closed doors. We were two hearts bound together, despite the lies, despite the risks, despite the world that could never understand. And even though fear still lingered in the back of my mind, love had taken root. And love, once spoken aloud, is impossible to silence. After that night, everything between us changed. Saying "I love you" out loud made it real, more real than any kiss, more real than any risk. We weren't just sneaking behind closed doors anymore. We were two women who had fallen in love, and love, as beautiful as it is, has a way of demanding more. The secret grew heavier with each passing week. Every time Daniel returned, I had to watch him place his arm around her, kiss her cheek, call her darling like she belonged only to him. And she would smile, play her part, and glance toward me with eyes that carried our truth. It was torture, knowing what was mine but never being able to claim it. One evening, after another rushed embrace before Daniel's car pulled into the driveway, I pulled away and whispered, "How long can we keep doing this, Claire?" Her breath shook, and for the first time I saw fear in her eyes, not of being caught, but of losing me. She gripped my hands, holding them tight. "As long as it takes. Because I can't lose you." We didn't have answers. We didn't have a plan. All we had was the fire that pulled us together, the need that had turned into love, and the quiet promise that neither of us could walk away. Our secret continued, hidden in the shadows of her marriage. Sometimes it was fiery, frantic, fueled by lust and danger. Other times it was tender, filled with whispered confessions in the safety of her arms. But always, it was ours. There were close calls. Moments when neighbors lingered too long with questions, moments when Daniel's eyes seemed to study her a second too carefully. But somehow, we always slipped through the cracks, our secret tucked safely between us. And yet, deep inside, I knew the truth, secrets this big don't stay hidden forever. One day, there would be a choice, her marriage or me, her safe life or the love that set her free. For now, though, we lived in the in-between. The stolen hours. The whispered "I love yous." The nights where her robe slid off her shoulders and her lips found mine with the kind of desperation that only forbidden love can create. Her husband had no idea. And maybe that was our power, or maybe it was our curse. But as I held her close, her head resting against my chest, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever risks lay ahead, I would never regret the way she made me feel. Because some loves, no matter how dangerous, no matter how forbidden, are worth everything.